the bolt take. That's the bolt take. I'm still busy trying to get a workable studio going. But here we go. Take one.
When asked why he is fighting with the Pope, Donald Trump told the despicable and instantly provable lie that the Pope thinks Iran can have a nuclear weapon.
Now, Lewis, I'm not fighting with him. The Pope made a statement. He says Iran can have a nuclear weapon. I say Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Fighting with the Pope is stupid enough as a simple political matter. Fighting with the Pope when you are demonstrably wrong is something beyond stupid. And then lying about what the Pope said in a world where everyone knows what the Pope said and didn't say is another Trumpian act of pure public insanity.
I disagree with the Pope. If the Pope would allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon, he can't do that.
Not allowed to do that.
Has ever wanted any country to have a nuclear weapon. No Pope has ever wanted nuclear weapons
Never.
to spread
Nor do I.
as they have in
And
the
I'm
second
not the
half
Pope.
of the 20th century. So Donald Trump doesn't even know what he's disagreeing with the Pope about. Catholic bishops have pointed out that the Pope has simply been preaching the gospel. That's their preaching the gospel, which the man who doesn't know what the word gospel means actually said, I'm all about the gospel.
I'm all about that. It's fun about this. It's all about the.
I'm all about the gospel. I'm all about the gospel. I'm about it as much as anybody can be.
Once again, we are facing a demented Trumpian burst of language and thought. I'm all about the gospel. I'm about
I'm
it
all
as much
about the.
as anybody can. I'm about it as much as anybody can.
I
You've
got
never
you on
heard
the tune.
anyone tell you they're all about something.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
weird language
What's
and
in the tune?
as much as anybody can.
The tune.
Donald Trump's psychosis that demands that he be the absolute most insuperable at everything he is.
I actually want sheets, but I'm not going to do that now.
The best at hiring people, which somehow
I'll
includes
just
all of
experiment with that
He
piece.
fired the first time he was president because they were all so terrible as of the moment he fired them, and the two cabinet secretaries that he's fired so far this time around. And he's the only person in America of any race who has ever said, I'm the least racist person in the world. Those are his exact words. The psychotic, insecure competitiveness of Donald Trump isn't satisfied with simply declaring himself not racist. He has to be less racist than Joe Biden, less racist than Barack Obama, less racist than Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela. And so the jumbled, dysfunctional mind of Donald Trump that started a war with Iran was capable of delivering this assessment of his war today.
We have a very good relationship with Iran right now, as hard as it is to believe.
Hard to believe? What's hard to believe about that? Donald Trump launched a war with Iran for no reason, bombed every military target they could find, along with a university and at least one girls' school, killing hundreds of innocent children. Why wouldn't we have a very good relationship with Iran right now? We've never had a good relationship with Iran, but Donald Trump says that after all of the destruction that he has visited upon Iran, we have a very good relationship with Iran right now. Those are his exact words. Now, think of how deeply sick your brain has to be to think you can say that sentence out loud in America today. That's not a matter of underestimating the intelligence of your audience. That is a matter of having zero functional intelligence of your own, zero ability to even hear what you are saying. Donald Trump has said Iranians have agreed to almost everything he wants.
We had to make sure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. And we're at that. They've agreed to that. They've totally agreed to that. They've agreed to almost everything.
Well, I don't know about almost In fact, I have their agreement right here in writing. There it is right there. That highlighted spot you see right there says Iran reaffirms that under no circumstances will Iran ever seek, develop, or acquire any nuclear weapons. 11 years ago. This is the agreement. The President Obama's Secretary of State John Kerry got Iran to sign a promise to under no circumstances ever seek, acquire, or develop any nuclear weapons. 5 other countries, China, France, Germany, Russia, United Kingdom, joined that negotiation to convince Iran to sign this deal. Iran agreed to allow hundreds of inspectors into the country to constantly monitor their activity to be sure that Iran was never developing a nuclear weapon. And the agreement was working. There was not a shred of evidence to be found anywhere by anyone, including Israeli intelligence, that Iran in any way violated their agreement with President Obama and 5 other countries involved. And so Donald Trump should be able to get the Iranians to put in writing the same thing they put in writing 11 years ago.
I'm up and down tonight.
But no one in the news media
I'm up and down
should
tonight.
treat
I wonder what
that
this looks
as
like.
some kind of breakthrough
I'll make a
because Donald
stencil.
Trump, in the single stupidest diplomatic action in American history,
I think I'll make a stencil on the side of his stupid shit bike on the tank somewhere at the bottom.
Secretary of State John
Because
Kerry,
he's a muso.
and the other participating countries in that
Timo is a muso.
all of whom worked very hard for years to convince Iran to never develop nuclear weapons and put that promise in writing. Donald Trump just ripped it up. That agreement, that successful agreement, allowed monitors from all of those countries into Iran to study everything that Iran was doing every day and make sure Iran was not developing nuclear weapons. When Donald Trump ripped up that agreement, all of those inspectors were immediately thrown out of Iran, thrown out of the country. Now let's see how many inspectors Donald Trump gets back into Iran, and don't be surprised if it is 0. Donald Trump, who could not successfully negotiate an agreement to buy the silence of porn star Stormy Daniels, is now trying to get Iran to agree to what it agreed to 11 years ago. And while they're at it, please reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran had never closed before during any other president, any other conflict. It took Donald Trump to achieve the closure of the Strait of Hormuz in Iran, and now Donald Trump will consider it a negotiating triumph if Iran simply reopens it. So Donald Trump's incompetent negotiators are negotiating tonight for the world as it existed before Donald Trump became president the first time. And that buffoon tore up that agreement in his first term and is now begging Iran
It's a better
to
word
give
than
him the
buffoon,
deal
I
that John
suppose.
Kerry so carefully negotiated. On behalf of President Obama,
Where did that nail go?
with the Pope holding the keys to the great those who manipulate religion and the very name of God for their own military, economic, or political gain, dragging that which is sacred into darkness and filth. Most of the world interpreted that as a description of the irreligious man in the White House who now says, I'm all about the gospel. I'm about as much as anybody can be.
Joining us now is MSNBC Valley Natalie reporting on Capitol Hill. Barbara Starr is former Pentagon correspondent and author of Barbara Starr Reports on Substack. Retired U.S. Army Colonel Jack Jacobs, Medal of Honor recipient and MS Now military analyst, joins me here in studio. Allie, what else did we hear today?
Well, this was a hearing, as you mentioned, Chris, that was supposed to be about the 2027 budget request, which includes a massive plus-up for defense and military spending. And yet we have seen a substantial amount of time dedicated by members from both parties
I just want the record to reflect how much we regret. I personally regret, at least, he's no longer in active service. He's a real loss to us, in my opinion.
I too regret the fact of the conditions that he left the service in, and I think that our country will regret that circumstance.
I was getting very upset and disturbed at how summarily he was dismissed. And that, I just think that was really handled very, very poorly.
And so, of course, we hear members there lamenting his departure, both the way in which it happened, but then also the landscape within which it happened. Certainly, Barbara and Colonel Jack can talk more about this, but Hegseth has had several moments of inflection points during his tenure atop the Pentagon, blocking promotions largely for African Americans and women within the apparatus. And then, of course, the larger question of why are you making these kinds of high-level departures and forced resignations during the ongoing war with Iran? Of course, that was also a topic of discussion during Driscoll's time in front of this subcommittee. And there's a large question here on Capitol Hill about what the cost of that war is. And then, of course, what the supplemental funding ask is going to be on the part of this administration. It's budget season, so it makes a lot of sense for us to be asking about the dollars and cents behind these foreign policy moves, in addition to, of course, Chris, the questions about the foreign policy moves themselves and exactly how much longer they're going to last.
Okay, thank you for that. Barbara, what are you hearing right now about the mood inside the Pentagon?
Well, I think it's fairly grim because, frankly, nobody knows what morning they wake up and may not have a job because Hegseth says you're fired. None of these people, we're up to several senior officers that he has summarily dismissed, and there's no accusations of any wrongdoing against them or that they weren't doing their jobs properly. The statistics will show a fair number of women and black African American senior officers, and he just doesn't want them there anymore. And I think that everyone is holding their breath to see if he tries to do the same thing with Driscoll, the civilian head of the Army. They are open adversaries, to say the least, at the Pentagon, because Driscoll has been talked about as a successor to Hegseth, and that drives Hegseth crazy, of course. But Driscoll has something in his back pocket. He is close to Vice President J.D. Vance, and it's not at all clear Hegseth would have the chops to get rid of him at this point.
Look, Jack, I don't need to tell you that a little bit of drama inside the military isn't necessarily something completely new, but when you're looking at this kind of internal fight on the heels of summarily firing someone who, by most accounts, very competent and whose loss is a loss for the country, what does that do?
Well, it's not helpful, I can tell you that. This is like a long-running soap opera, and it's been weighing on the Pentagon for some time. It was clear from the very beginning that Hegseth wanted to get rid of General George, because he'd been close to Lloyd Austin, his Secretary of Defense. That was not to this president. Secretary Driscoll had done a very good job of insulating General George, who, by the way, done some great things in the Army, focusing our attention on getting more ammunition, for example, which is vitally important in the middle of a war or any other time. Deciding how we're going to use drones and defend against drones and all the rest of the modern battlefield problems that are besetting troops in the open. Did a great job, and now gone. It's not helpful for morale, not at the bottom of the food chain, but certainly at the top, where all the plans are constructed and executed and so on. It makes for extremely difficult times for the military establishment at a difficult time in the United States. It remains to be seen what's going to happen next. Barbara, I like what Barbara said when she said that the relationship between Hegseth and Driscoll goes beyond just what I was talking about. Hegseth's, I think, principal spokesman, from what I understand, would desperately love to have Driscoll's job. But Driscoll at the moment is insulated. He's very close to J.D. Vance. school together. This is, I said, a soap opera. We'll be back again talking about it soon.
Oh boy. And then Barbara, I want to go back for a second if I can to something you and Allie both brought up, which is other firings and lack of promotions. The Secretary Hegseth blocking the promotion of 4 Army officers to be 1-star general. And some senior military officials questioned whether they were being singled out because of race or gender. 2 are black, 2 are women. So we looked at the DoD demographics from 2024, the last report we could find. 32% of active duty military members are racial minorities. Nearly 18% are women. How damaging inside the ranks is even the perception, although some people would say the reality, that promotions, firings, depend on your sex and your race.
Well, the fact I think that we're asking that question, the question itself is completely appropriate and must be asked, but the fact that this has become an issue is the big problem in and of itself, because the military is supposed to be blind, not take into account someone's gender, someone's race, someone's religion. And of course, we're now seeing Secretary Hegseth very much take an unprecedented official stand to bring his own personal religious faith to the podium. Of course, he's completely entitled to his own faith, but to put it in the official context when he stands at the podium to talk about this religious issue, these are things that do not do the military any big favor, frankly. The military exists so that everyone is essentially on that equal footing, short of their rank, of course, because everyone can be called into battle, everyone can be called to do their job under extreme duress, and no one is supposed to be favored. Hegseth doesn't really seem to be going down that road.
In the press conference this morning, the Secretary took aim at the press over its coverage of the war. Not new, but listen to what he said.
It just can't help but notice the endless stream of garbage, the relentlessly negative coverage. You cannot resist peddling, despite the historic and important success of this effort and the success of our troops. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what side some of you are actually on. It's incredibly unpatriotic. Your politically motivated animus for President Trump nearly completely blinds you from the brilliance of our American warriors.
I want to get a quick reaction from both Jack and Barbara, but Barbara, let me start with you because you have covered the Pentagon for decades. Again, not new rhetoric from Hegseth, but is it reaching some kind of new level?
Well, it's interesting that he literally attacks the news media with increasing insults and aggressiveness in, I would say, in every public appearance. Clearly with the agreement of President Trump, or he wouldn't be doing it, possibly to try and turn public opinion about the war in Iran. And if that's the case, he is an abysmal failure, because public sentiment about the war in Iran has not shifted by any account of any reliable polling, even though Hegseth keeps going on about all this. I guess my answer to all of this is the Secretary of Defense may wish to reacquaint himself with the words in the First Amendment and reacquaint himself with his own oath of office. The press corps is not going away. The press corps will continue to do its job and will continue to report the news.
I'm remembering back to the war for which you won the Medal of Honor, Jack, that there was arguably the best television figure who ever lived, Walter Cronkite. Every night he showed from day after day after day people couldn't lost. And that war, I suppose that might be considered unpatriotic. It depends on what your definition of patriotism is. If being truthful is unpatriotic, if reporting on what you see and know to be true is unpatriotic. I wonder how you view what you see from Hegseth. Is it meant as a distraction? What is happening here?
Well, Walter Cronkite was accused, with the truth, of being being unpatriotic. But the people of the United States were behind him as it transpired. Because the truth always wins, well, not always, almost always wins out, but certainly wins out in the end. Times have changed. You have different people at the top at the moment. And to the extent that they get away with it,
Come on. Let's have it.
people in positions of authority and responsibility can say anything and do anything they wish. And they will continue doing it as long as people let them do it. It's not very good for national security. It's not particularly good for morale. It seems sometimes that our own efforts using the military instrument of power is fragmented because the leadership itself is fragmented. That needs to change, but it's not going to change until the people change or their attitudes change. And we don't see that happening anytime soon, do we?
It's disgusting. I talked with my wife about it earlier. I mean, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and that right there is, I mean, I don't really have words for that. That's disgusting.
As a Christian, how do you feel when you see this image?
Offended. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that he would actually do that.
Yeah.
The man I voted for and trust.
Yeah. Just a bullshitter, my friend.
Politics are one thing, but stepping into that area is a little bit different, a little bit.
You trusted you got yourself a bullshitter right there.
And he's gonna pay for it. One day, like all of us, he's gonna
My
have
dad
to
always
stand
used to
for
say,
the Father, he's gonna answer for all this.
you can't bullshit a bullshitter.
Getting those reactions from supporters of the president in Florida about the scintillated image depicting Trump.
My dad was quite a bullshitter. He could throw shit, let me tell you. He was the best representative of Tempest Radio years running. He was the first guy to sell $1 million worth of radios in 1 month. 1 million rand meant a lot of money when he was selling radios, and they were selling portable radios. 1 million. And he was getting 1.5% of this. And we moved up in life, baby. Where's the...
Including from Vice President J.D. Vance, a Catholic convert.
Where's the... Break the score.
The question now, will the dispute leave Trump's Catholic voters with a crisis of faith?
Catholic voters are a fairly swingy group.
Catholics represent roughly 20% of the U.S. population. Trump
Didn't
lost
sound
Catholics in
too
2020 to Joe Biden by just 5 points, but won by
Catholic, that?
double digits against Kamala Harris in
No, that is
2024.
sweet to little boys sometimes.
Horacio says Trump's favorability with Catholics has gone up and down several times in his second term.
I don't think that the Pope episode is going to turn Catholic voters, but it is something Catholic voters are likely to be paying attention to.
Horacio believes
Trying a new
this spat
method
will be
now
largely
with
forgotten by Catholics in November.
taking
He says a
chords
majority of
together.
them still agree with Trump's immigration policies in the war in Iran.
For Catholic
The
voters
two apart.
or the
I think
past,
these
present,
two are
future coalition for
quite
Donald Trump,
apart.
they know this about him. They know that he gets in fights with people.
Inflaming tensions further, Trump posting an AI-generated image portraying himself as a Jesus-like
Jesus.
figure. The post sparked backlash, even from some of his Christian voters.
I don't really have words for that.
Yeah, now that seals your face, my son.
I'm ashamed that
You can't compare Jesus Christ with your voters.
Trump defended the
And then
post.
people love them Jesus.
And had to do with Red Cross as a Red Cross.
Yeah.
Following a conversation with
Fucking
House Speaker Mike
you.
Johnson.
Fucked up, my son. You fucked up. Where's my life?
Very rare moment in either of Trump's presidential terms where Republicans were fairly unified in saying this was inappropriate, please take it down. And he did. That doesn't happen all that often.
Trump's feud with the Pope has also affected his relationship with a longtime European ally, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, who called his remarks about the pontiff unacceptable. Trump fired back, telling an Italian newspaper she's the one who's unacceptable. Back to you.
people don't know what their own religion is even about, because they've never read the book. They've never gone through the literature. Come on, guys. They've never gone through the literature. They've just been shown certain parts. I was thinking, Robert Kennedy, you cooked. You cooked, my son. Two little Ed and Eddie. Ed, and Eddie. Oh, I'm going to pet a pig. Ed and Eddie. Love an episode. Ed and Eddie. I don't know who used to like it better, me or the kids. And Eustace the dog. I've got to play me somewhere else. Eddie, say something. Whilst I'm putting...
Felicitations to you too, dear Jimmy. Your cowlick looks so defined today, Jimmy. Ruth has much admiration for he who can lick a cow. A compliment, I'm sure. Sorry to say, I'm on my way. Cheerio. Lick the alligator.
No, I want to...
Terra is the IT painkiller. Remote monitoring and management, remote access, help desk and ticketing, smart automations, patching, software deployment, scripting. And the amazing thing is that it does all this while still being easy to use. It's magical. Just as